Hi there and welcome again to Grandma's Magic. Today's project is going to be making this pouch. Now, this is great for holding your glasses in, your notions, your crochet hooks and any scissors. As you can see, you can put your stitch markers on the edge so you don't have to go hunting for them. It's a nice, easy project. It's a handy project for using scrap yarn. I did this one using multiple yarn, as you can see, some pink, some blue, and when I ran out of that, I just found another one to add to it. Now, these ones have one button, but you can make it with two. Good excuse to go hit the op shops to find some interesting yarn to use, and also keep an eye out for material because you can line these so as to stop your hooks, which I've noticed coming through the holes. I haven't got one with me, but from the op shop I got these scrap material. You can use any scrap material that you can find. This is a nice thin cotton, which makes it easier to sew. I've got two buttons to use on mine, and some bits of material. I will show you the easy way. You can use sewing machine if you have it on hand, or you can hand sew the pieces together, and I will show you that. So let's get into it. All right, so I'm using some scrap yarn I turned into a cake at some point. All right, let's begin. I'm going to chain up 31. So 30 chains are your working stitches and the 1 is your turning chain. Okay, let's start with a slip stitch. Put the hook in. Tighten up, but not too tight. And let's chain up 31 chains. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 30, 31. Okay, so let's compare that, and that's plenty long enough. All right, now we're going to work from the second chain from the hook, not the first but the second, and we're going to make 36 rows of Australian double or US single crochet. So let's go. Hook in, yeah, over, pull through. And this is all you do. Nice and easy. We just work our way to the end. And I'll meet you there. We're almost to the end. Last few. Okay. So now we chain up one, turn, and then we start just working back. So work our way along. Making sure that you are under the V's. We just continue on with the same stitch. Hence why I figured this would be a nice beginning project, because it's just one stitch and you're making something that will get used with your future projects and working with your crocheting. So it's something useful. All right, I'll meet you at the end. Okay, last couple. Okay, chain up, turn work, and we work back. Now, we're going to do this for 36 rows. So you may want to get a piece of paper to keep a count as you go. Mark off a notch and help keep count of your rows. So 36 rows of double/single crochet. All right, I'm going to leave you to it. Compress pause here, and I'll meet you at the other end of this square. Good luck. See you at the other end. So you've been busily working along and you are losing count of what row you're on. How can I tell what row I'm on? So, for starters, the end with your tail, that's the beginning of your odd rows. So if you keep that to one side, regardless, so for example, on my right, that means you're not counting your chain row, but your first row along is an odd row. So coming back towards your tail is an odd row, but when you're working away from your tail, that's an even row. But still, how do I count the rows? So I'm going to start from this side, and you can see your different rows. So we start count with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the last row I did was row 10. So now that was worked in the opposite way to my tail. So that tells me that's an even row. So that's how you keep track. You notice the directions that each row goes. So that also helps. You can count in pairs. So you can see that bottom row, but the next row faces away from you. So you go 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So I hope that helps you work out where you are. So I'll meet you at the end of that. It's going to take you a while. This has taken me about 20 minutes to get this far. So press pause or stop and come back when you have completed your square, ready for us to turn it into a pouch. I'm just stopping here to give you a tip. So you're not having to count all the way from the bottom to the top all the time. At round 18, row 18, I put a stitch marker in. So that's the halfway mark for this pouch. And it means not having to count all the way from the bottom again. You just go to where your stitch marker is and start counting the rows up. So let's see. 2, 4, 6, 7. I've completed 7 rows after the row 18. That just makes it easier, and because it's halfway point, instead of counting, all you've got to do is fold in half to see how much more that you need to go. So once you've done the full 18 rows, it should fold and meet. So that tells you where the row 18 mark, how much more you need to go. And now we're back to the end. This is row 36. Let's work this together, unless you've already worked it. Oops. Oh. All right, and I'll meet you at the end. All right, the end of row 36. We're going to tie off, cut the yarn. Now you can either sew it in or cheat, and we'll work over our tails. All right, so to know if it's right, remember your stitch mark is halfway. So And there we go. You know you've done enough rows. So now we're going to fold it, and we've got our tail at one end on one side, and our what we just cut off, our working yarn. Remove the stitch marker. Alright, so now we're going to fold it in thirds. So it's about 1/3, maybe a little bit more. We want it deep enough to put our glasses into. So measure by that. And bringing over. So, all right. Now we're going to just pin this close. Where's my pins? Ready for when we start working the sides. Because we're going to do a trim along the edge that will work over your tails and end up hiding them. And we're going to do 2 buttons. So going to count along 10. So we're going to count 10 stitches in and put a stitch marker in to count for the first loop for our buttons. So go to the end and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we'll put a stitch marker into that one. Now we're going to go to the end and count back 10. So the last stitch worked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now we put a stitch marker into that stitch. So these are the points where we will make our chain for our loops to go over our buttons. All right. And there. Okay, now we're going to pick up our yarn again. Now there's more than one way to join. You can put your hook in, let's see, in there. Now our edging is just going to be more of the same stitch. Now you can just grab, hook the yarn over, pull through and make a chain up to be the first stitch, and now we're just going to work along trying to match the other side. Oops. Yarn over, pull through, and we're going to work over our tail. Now the other way is to make a slip stitch. Again, put our hook through both sides, grab the loop, pull through, put your tail over the top and do a chain one. Try that again. Trying to see past the camera. So, and that's our first stitch. Now we're going to, through one side, out the other, pick up the yarn and pull through and work our way along. Now you're working into the rows, the end of the rows that you made. So in each row is a space for one stitch, and as you can see, I'm working over my tail. Find the next gap, go through. Now this doesn't have to be perfect, but you get a rhythm going of finding the spaces to put your hook into and out the other side. So and work our way along. You can see where the stitches end up in those gaps and match up out the back. So you're not having to worry about counting your stitches. You just work in the gaps along, working over your tail, because this saves having to sew it in. I always like to just work over my tails to hide them. Alright, last one on there. Now that's closed that side up, and we're going to work our way along, still working over our tails. And work our way to the corner. It's a little bit easier when you just get to one side, not sewing two sides together, or crocheting two sides together. Now we're almost at the corner. So here what we do is we do 3 single crochets into the corner, and that takes you around to then be, and there we go, nice corner of 3 single crochets, and we work along till we get to the stitch marker. Still working over our tails if you have one. If you don't like working over the tails, you can always just sew them in. We're working 1 in each stitch. Keep working out of the camera. All right, now in the stitch you marked, this is where we begin our chain for the button. So we work into it, and we're going to chain enough to go around your button placement. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now fold that over. Now we're working around, so probably a chain of 10 will be enough. That was 8, 9, 10. And now we're going to go into the next stitch. So that was stitch 11. And we'll do a slip stitch and then work our way along between all right. Work up to the stitch before your stitch marker. All right. See the stitch before the stitch marker? That one's got your stitch marker in it. This one's where we're going to do our last stitch and then chain 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Remove your stitch marker, and then we're going to slip stitch into that one, and then do our single crochet all the way to the end. And like the previous corner, we will do 3 single crochets into the corner to then take it around. So there's 1, 2, and 3, all into the same stitch. It takes you around, and now we start working down the side in each row. Oh, so And again, we're working over the tail from your corner where you finished off. And we work up to all right. So now we've met back up to where the two sides come together. We find first stitch, match it up with the other side and single crochet through, working over your tail. And we'll take that all the way to the end. Oh. Almost there. Few more. Just one more to the very last. And make a chain, cut your yarn, and pull that out. Now, get your darning needle, and we're just going to cheat and pull that through. Now you can turn your work inside out and darn it backwards and forwards if you want. Just pick up pull that through and go back. Generally, as a rule of thumb, you do it 3 times so it locks it in and it won't be going anywhere. So you can cut it off, we'll leave it there. It's going to be on the inside so you won't see it. Now, sewing thread. Now, here's a test for your eyesight. Being able to get that end through the eye. Oh, and we're lucky, first time. So I'm going to double up. Less, well, harder for it to break. So make a knot in the end. Alright. So now we're going to work out where we need to sew these buttons. So place the buttons roughly where the chain comes to a rest. All right. See where your chains come to a rest? That's where the base of your button is going to need to be. So what I will do is I'm going to run the needle from the outside around behind, come back through, and then I'm going to run the needle through so that then catches and stops the yarn, the thread, from coming out and ties it around. So get your button, go through, we'll just go through and sew on however you know how to sew a button. I go through that yarn, back through the buttonhole, and try and pull tight. You see, we just keep working that a few times so as to make sure that that button's not going anywhere. So about 4 or 5 times. That's 3, 4. Can't line it up. And 1 more, and then we'll tie around it. So wrap the yarn around your button a few times, and we sew back through and wrap the yarn around the needle a couple of times to create a knot. Now you can cut it off here, or you can cheat, sew through the underneath. But first let's find out where the next button needs to come up. So around there, just put a pin in that, making sure that you're in alignment with the button, so you're on the same row. Now we're going to cheat and just run that through so that it's sort of going behind until we get to where our next button placement is. Now, like the last one, I'm going to go around and between the threads so as to create a knot. And now we get the next button. Can't get it to go through and stay through. There we go. And just like the last button, going to sew under, then through the hole. We keep doing that for a few. Sorry, I keep getting out of. Through. Through the buttonhole. I mean. We just do that again for about 4 or 5 times. That's 3. 4. 1 more. 5. Go under. Wrap the yarn around. Thread. And now we'll do a knot. So wrap the thread around the needle a couple of times, 2 or 3, pull it through, and that creates a knot. Now take that through to the other side and just weave the end. Just run it through a few times. And cut the end. So now you have your pouch. Button loops will hook around your buttons, and that will keep it closed. Now you can call it quits and use it as is, or we can go on to the next stage and make a lining. Now you need your material of choice, cut to the length of your pouch, and we will be sewing. I'm going to hand sew this. Good. But if you have a sewing machine, run it through the sewing machine down one side, along the other, then up. It doesn't matter if it's wider than your pouch, because what you will do is you'll end up folding it down to then fit in. So you're going to need sewing needles, thread, and some pins to help hold it all together. So I'll need you on the next leg. So you've got your material cut to size. You want it to be as long as your pouch, maybe even a longer, to allow for your seams. Now for pins, we're going to pin the sides together, just so as to keep them together and you're not chasing them. So that's what the pins are for. So down one side, along the bottom. And on the third side. Last pin. Now you're going to want enough thread to sew down one side along and then up, and for a little added extra to then come back so that it stays together. So our thread, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That should be more than enough to do the sides. Need to get myself some better scissors. Alright, let's thread the needle. Again, good eyesight, get it done in one go. I like to make sure that there's a light background behind my needle, the eye of the needle, so that I can see where I'm threading through. Alright, I think I miscalculated. I should have done more, but we'll see how far this takes us. Tie a knot in the end. If you've got a thimble, now's a good time to use it. I don't know where my thimbles are right now. So, let's start one side. You want to be at least 1/2 centimetre in. And don't make your stitches too long. We're going to work our way along the edge. So here's a sewing lesson included in your crochet lesson. So you can see the distance of my stitches, and we will continue till we've got all the way around. So, work to the end. Now, To make sure this stays together and doesn't come undone, just put a few stitches locking stitches at the corners so it doesn't come undone. One more locking stitch, and let's start working along the edge like we did the side. There. Corner knots will stop that from coming unravelled. We just work along. I'll meet you at the other corner. Now again in the corner, just do a few more locking stitches. And there we go. Let's just run along the last side. So we've almost finished sewing this up. Now if you want for a little added extra strength and you have allowed yourself enough yarn to do so, thread, not yarn, thread. When you get to the end, again, we'll do locking stitch. Material's a little tough. And to make sure that, and there you have your pouch. So now we need to fit the pouch in. Let's undo the buttons. Now we want this to be as deep as the pocket of our pouch is, and this is where we turn the inside out, making sure that it's going to be deep enough. Didn't matter if the material was too big. So now we just insert our pouch in, line it up, and now you can just sew around the edges so that it stays in. I'll just run some pins at the moment. And same with the back. And now you have a lined pouch so that your hook will go in and not come out the ends of your crochet. You've got place for your needles. If you want any pins, they can go through. Darning needles, so that you've always got one at hand. And hook your stitch markers along. That way you have everything at hand. Oh, and your scissors. They can go in too. And then it just all folds up. Hooks up. And it's ready to go. And you've made use of some scrap yarn if you had scrap, or yarn of your choice. And you can make as many of these as you feel need, that you have one for each project that you're going to make, that you're not having to go hunting. So I think I'm now up to 6 of these pouches. So they're nice and handy to have, to grab, to put in with your project, so that you're not hunting for everything that you need. It's all there together. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.